Hello everyone, this is part 22 of What If Naruto Had a Proper Teacher, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
The Mizukage was idly tapping her foot as she considered the latest news from the war. Konoha had shattered the invasion. It was a shock to learn that two Kage had been involved in the attack on the Leaf Village, two now dead Kage. It really was a frightening prospect to see the full strength of Konoha. It had cost them their taijutsu master, but in return they had annihilated the elite in Kumo. The Raikage, Darui and Samui were dead and both Jinchuriki were now missing. At the same time Iwa had also suffered greatly. Their Kage was dead, as was his presumptive heir. One Jinchuriki was dead and the other taken from within the heart of their village itself. How is this possible? Could Konoha really have taken Iwa and Kumo's Jinchuriki while simultaneously defending Takagakure, the Fire Daimyo and Konoha? No, it isn't possible. Either there was a third party or Konoha had powerful allies that have yet to make themselves known. She suppressed a sigh as she listened to the various advisors prattle on about what action should be taken. With four of the major villages embroiled in a war, many in Kiri were anxious to play a role. The war was shaping up to be a brutal affair and the winning side would stand to reap significant awards. Some argued in favor of siding with what seemed to be the winning side. Konoha had won stunning early victories and their enemies were in disarray. Her bodyguard Talia spoke against this. The Sutan user kept her remarks brief. Jiraiya is a heavy-handed tyrant. Kumo felt compelled to go to war due to attacks within their own border. He lures them in and then crushes his enemies. He's destroyed Otogakure and Moyagakure utterly. Will such a man ever be content sharing power with anyone? Al snorted, there's no proof that he started the war. It was Hai no Kuni that was invaded after all. The Leaf spared sooner after their betrayal. Our trade agreement brokered by him has helped us get back on our feet. I say we stand by Konoha and help put an end to the war quickly. An elder by the name of Genji raised his own voice. It was gnarled with age and he spoke slowly, why go to war at all? Let the other villages fight it out. Our shinobi can earn more coin for the village while their shinobi batter each other back and forth. Dai Munashi was the only surviving relation of Jinpachi Munashi, once one of the legendary swordsmen of the mist. He scoffed at the elder. You've had your glory days in a bygone era. Our village has known little glory recently. Our swordsmen were scattered, our village name mocked and our people have been mired in civil war. Now is the time to do something, to reclaim our good name. Mei stood up suddenly. We will do nothing for now. However, I want twice as many shinobi scouting and spying on the other powers. Someone took those Jinchuriki. If it is the Leaf, we can't afford to upset them. If it isn't, we need to find out who has them. Both of our Biju have been taken and they are ours. Some voices rose to contradict her, but they were silenced with a blast of killing intent and a sweet smile. Our honored elder is correct. We could use the boon to our economy this war gives. Many rich merchants, civilians and minor powers will have contracts that we can fill. If war comes at our doorstep, it will find us well provisioned and ready. Our jutsu works best in our lands. We will not bleed out our power in a war outside of it. The Mizukage had spoken and Kirigakure would stay out of the war, for now. Break asterisk. HNN, Naruto, you know the problem with being this strong. Naruto looked him oddly and shrugged, no clue, being strong is great. We can't really spar at full strength anymore. Kakashi smiled wryly underneath his mask. Sasuke was right. A battle between the two of them would tear apart the countryside for miles. Furthermore, there existed too great of a chance for one of them to die. When dealing with jutsu that could level mountains and fires that couldn't be quenched outside of complicated seals, there wasn't a real good way to not deal lethal damage to the sparring partner. Naruto laughed, yeah, but why would we need to spar? Everyone knows I'd win, believe it. Sasuke snorted but didn't necessarily disagree. Kakashi had taught him to view things through the lens of reality, not through pride. Naruto's Kage Bunshin and Sage Mode were difficult things to counteract. While they both held powerful contracts, it was Naruto who could better utilize his. He had the chakra to summon multiple powerful toads and Sasuke couldn't do that and still maintain Susanoo. Kakashi interjected, where is Sakura anyway? Naruto sighed, still working on that sealing array. It would be a lot more fun dating her if I didn't have to drag her away from her fuinjutsu formulas. They probably interest her more than you do, Sasuke mocked. Naruto glared at his teammate and said, speaking of dating, how are your marriage prospects going? Sasuke didn't like talking about it and Naruto knew it. He had received several offers. Few of them were kunoichi, however. He had wanted kunoichi in order to have strong children to lead the Uchiha clan back into greatness. He instead got dozens of civilian girls. While it had never been proven by medical nin that when civilians and shinobi procreate that it produced less powerful shinobi than if two shinobi did so, it was a generally accepted fact. Why else would the civilian population have such a high failure rate in the academy? Well, lots of reasons. Sasuke conceded to himself. Not having early childhood chakra training could play a factor, as could the harsh realities of the shinobi lifestyle. Not as well as I'd hoped. One of the front runners for the first one is probably Amy Koga. The young woman was Sasuke's age and had gone to the academy but had failed the graduation test. She was in good health, did have some innate ability to mold chakra, and her family were respected craftsmen. It was a good match. Naruto chuckled. I remember her being quite the bitch in the academy. Sasuke shrugged. I remember you being quite the dobe in the academy. People do change. The waitress came by and took their order. It was a nice restaurant that served a variety of food. It was a little pricey, but Team 7 could afford it. And it had the added benefit of not being too fancy. Kakashi changed the subject over to how Naruto's training was going with the new recruits. It's going great, Kakashi-sensei. I've only had about a dozen drop out. Some of them aren't going to make it to Genin status, but Jiraiya and I talked about creating a home guard group of civilians who would be in charge of protecting other civilians if the worst should happen. It would put them on a higher footing than most soldiers that serve the daimyo. And with the kunai scrolls they could probably take enemy genin and weak chunin. Any promising gems? Kakashi asked. Naruto furrowed his brow. I guess that depends on how you define gems. There are several that will be great as part of Konoha's medical program. They won't ever be frontline fighters, but they have a gift for chakra control and will be able to save a lot of lives. Kakashi knew that was useful, but all three of them knew what he was really asking. Naruto continued speaking after thinking a few more moments. There are two who never gave up the dream and kept themselves in good physical condition. Give them 6 months and I'm sure they will be solid chunin. After that, who knows how far they can go. As they were discussing the two in more detail, Sakura approached the table. Sorry everyone, but I was close to a breakthrough and wanted to finish my thoughts. Naruto rose and planted a soft kiss on her lips. No problem, Sakura-chan. Kakashi had dabbled in fuinjutsu, though he had never mastered it. He asked, how is your research and experimentation going? Sakura's green eyes showcased her frustration. That seal is very effective. No wonder the Byakugan has been so secure for so long. The key sealing matrix is deliberately unstable and will prevent other fuinjutsu from interacting with it without triggering a fatal reaction. Any way to stabilize it? Kakashi asked. Sakura let a bit more of her frustration show. None that I can see. Anything that interacts with it would trigger the reaction. Anything. I thought maybe I could isolate one of the supporting components, but it's locked up tighter than any vault. Naruto knew how important it was to Sakura. He rubbed her back lightly and said, you'll get it. It's only been a couple of weeks. Kakashi sat there mulling over an idea. The Byakugan becomes sealed upon the host's death as well, correct? Sakura nodded. How long does it take? Sakura wasn't sure, but it had to happen within the first minute of death, otherwise there would be no chakra left to do anything. You should ask Tsunade-sama for help, Sakura. There are ways to induce a death-like state that could trick the caged bird seal into thinking the host is dead. At that point the Byakugan seals itself. From there the seal's booby traps are gone and you just need to figure out how to unseal the eyes. Sakura blinked at Kakashi. She had been so focused on finding a pure fuinjutsu solution that she never even considered seeking out the assistance of a medical nin. There would still be some problems and she would need volunteers, but the theory was sound. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. I'll go find Tsunade right now. Naruto said. Wait, but what about? But Sakura had already disappeared. Kakashi and Sasuke traded a look and then the two normally stoic shinobi burst out into a belly laugh. Naruto simply glared at them and muttered darkly. Break asterisk. The shinobi of Kumogakur were devastated. All of their powerful leaders had been killed. Their Raikage and his strong right arm were gone, as was his brother. Others of his inner circle were killed like Sumui and her team. Kumo had a great deal of pride and it was sorely shaken after the disasters. Now a new leader had to rebuild from the ashes. There were only a handful of potential candidates that had the power and the ability to lead Kumogakur. Archoi had the strength though that too was questionable with a missing arm but not the temperance. Fuyu was a solid kunoichi but she lacked the raw power one expected in a cage. Moreover she had few allies and her family name had been marred due to her brother's failure. Not only had he failed to gather the information he had needed but he had broken under the care of Konoha's T&I division. The Lightning Daimyo had also arrived in Kumo to personally help make the selection of the Godime Reikage. After much deliberation the Daimyo backed Tezuka Yotsuki. Tezuka was the head of the powerful Yotsuki clan. He was in his 50s which was normally considered too old to be selected for a cage, however Hiruzen coming out of retirement had set a precedent for it. Like all of the major clans of Kumo he was skilled with kenjutsu though he had not been on the battlefield for over 16 years. He was also a genjutsu aficionado. When he had been on the battlefield he combined blade and illusion to devastating effect. He was known for his caution and that was a plus since the Daimyo had wanted someone unlike the unruly Yondaime Reikage. While he was there he also participated in the War Council. There at the table were a number of critical leaders of Kumo. Mabui would continue to act as an assistant to the Reikage office and ensure a smooth transition. Fuyu and Archoi were also in attendance. The Lightning Daimyo was blunt, "How can we recover from this disaster?" Tezuka stroked his thin beard. "Currently we still outnumber the Konoha shinobi though we have little hope of countering their monstrous S-class individuals. The Namikaze has shown his ability to unleash devastating widespread jutsu so our numbers won't count for much in a direct conflict." Archoi made a sound from the back of his throat. "Namikaze. That's who you are worried about. I know that he butchered the Iwa army but it was the likes of Jiraiya, Tsunade and Guy that defeated us at the walls of Konoha." Tezuka's dark eyes bored into the ill-tempered hot head. "Since you cannot control your tongue leave this gathering," the new Reikage ordered. Archoi stalked out, angry at the dismissal. Yotsuki continued, "I propose two solutions. First I am tasking Fuyu to recreate the Kinkaku force. Before it was disbanded it had slain powerful shinobi all over the world including the Nadaime Hokage. Gather 20 of the best jonin you can find. Outside of the defense of the village their sole role will be the assassination of S-class opponents like the Hokage, Tsunade, Kakashi and his team." Fuyu was ecstatic with the news. With a team of assassins it would not be difficult to get her vengeance on Anko Mitarashi. "I will begin immediately Reikage-sama." Mabui prompted, "And the second solution? We should attempt to gather additional allies. The Haze and Frost are lost to us now but they were not all that important. Iwa has lost their leader and is in a similar situation as us. With Suna already pressuring them we can expect little assistance on that front." The Daimyo asked, "Then where will get additional help from?" Kiri. Tezuka smiled, "If they are open to it absolutely, but I am also going to begin negotiating with Tetsu no Kuni, Land of Iron." Fuyu cocked her head to the side, "But haven't they always been neutral?" "Traditionally they have, however my clan has many contacts within their country. I believe I can gain an audience with Mifune. Once he learns how close Konoha is to complete domination of the elemental nations he may see the need to intervene. And if not at the very least I am confident I can convince some of the samurai clans to lend their services as mercenaries." The Daimyo wasn't as confident as the new Reikage but he could see his words had already caused spirits to be raised among the downcast shinobi attending. Even if his efforts proved futile at least their morale would be raised. The Reikage had been well loved by the shinobi of the village and it would take quite a bit to get the village out of the depression. Still he had some concerns. "My advisors tell me that it is likely Konoha who has taken the tailed beasts from us and from Iwa. Training a Jinchuriki can take time but depending on whom they find as compatible hosts we could be looking at an overwhelming force in the next few years. Even with the Land of Iron's help I don't see how we would be able to stop them." The Reikage countered, "As you say it will be years before the new Jinchuriki will be battle ready. In the meantime trade has been disrupted in Hai no Kuni. Many of the citizens in the capital are dead and half the city went up in flames. Our land is still untouched. Fighting on favorable terrain while we enlist the aid of other potential allies is the best course of action." Yes, I did pick the next Reikage well. The Daimyo was relatively pleased with himself. "I'll defer to your strategic expertise Tezuka. Let me know if there is anything you need." Nothing more was needed from the feudal lord and he dismissed himself while the Kumo shinobi talked about how they would handle an attack if Hai no Kuni retaliated sooner rather than later. Break. Shikaku looked over the new information that had come in. Much of it was good news. Takagaku would of course honor their alliance since they had just been saved by Konoha, but it was other villages that were sending their promises of support, supplies and shinobi that pleased him. Kasagaku, village hidden in the grass, Hoshigaku, village hidden among stars, Tanagaku, village hidden in valleys, Getsugaku, village hidden under the moon, and even Ishigaku, village hidden in stones, a historical ally of Awagaku had sided with Konoha. Of the minor villages, only Omegaku, village hidden by rain, had not provided a positive response. They hadn't provided a negative response, they had simply provided no response. What concerned him was that the Akatsuki likely had control over most of the tailed beasts. Both Awagaku and Kumogaku had been attacked while their elite forces were away. That spoke highly of their ability to either move around the nations quickly or their intelligence apparatus. Either way, it meant bad news for Konoha. His spies had provided sketches of what the attackers looked like. The one that had hit Awagaku was masked and so no help was to be found there. It had been multiple shinobi who had struck at Kumogaku and their abilities were quite unique. The Akatsuki had some interesting powers, not the least of which was the ability to summon impressive if strange animals. He had made copies of the sketches and he showed them to Jiraiya and Naruto. Naruto or one of his clones could always be found with the Hokage now. Shikaku saw the young man who had once been thought of as an idiot began to show intelligence and knowledge of situations that would stump shinobi twice his age. Kage Bunshin means he probably has more knowledge than I do. Shikaku's musings about Naruto were interrupted as Jiraiya dropped the sketches. Impossible. What is it, pervy sage? Jiraiya pointed at the picture of one of the Akatsuki shinobi. That man is supposed to be dead. I trained him personally years ago. His name is Yahiko and he was a war orphan from the Second Shinobi World War. He eventually became a shinobi from Omegaku, but word reached me that he and his two friends had been killed. Jiraiya flipped through the other sketches, and she looks like an older Conan. The Hokage's emotions were scattered. Joyous at the prospect that his first students were alive and saddened that they had joined an organization like the Akatsuki. And then doubt also filtered in. What if this was simply a henge? What if the sketches were completely wrong and he was seeing what he wanted to see? Shikaku began thinking through some of the implications. Am was the only minor village of any importance that hasn't come out in support of us. The village has been virtually sealed off for years now. Shinobi come out to do missions and participate in Chunin exams, but no one goes in. Jiraiya looked up. Am could be the Akatsuki base of operations. It is a centrally located village that is shrouded in secrecy. It makes perfect sense. Naruto looked trouble. If you trained them, why are they working for the Akatsuki? The Hokage looked uncomfortable. I don't know. Also, one of them is missing. Nagato was the third student and the most powerful. He had the Rinnegan. Naruto, due to his extensive reading, knew legends of it. The eyes that the Sage of Six Paths had. The dojutsu that is stronger than the Sharingan. Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, he was something else. For a long time I thought he was going to change this world. Shikaku looked pensive. Maybe he has. You never learned who ran the Akatsuki organization. What other power could hold shinobi like Itachi, Kisame and Kakazu together? Their leader may very well be Nagato. The Toad Sage didn't look happy about that at all. The actions of the Akatsuki were so completely opposite to the way the gentle boy he taught had thought about things. It couldn't be true. It just couldn't be. Shikaku continued, we'll need to get more information. No, Jiraiya replied. If we are correct, then anyone who tries to scout out that place will die. The Akatsuki have taken down multiple tailed beasts. They have walked into two of the greater powers and taken what they wanted with ease. Sending anyone there will be suicide. Naruto jumped up. Then what are we going to do about it? Not a whole lot. I'm going to send another missive to Am and ask after Yahiko. I saved their lives and trained them. Hopefully they will still have some residual good thoughts about me. However, right now we are still in a war with Iwa and Kumo, and I don't like the idea of creating a new front in the conflict until it's necessary. Naruto asked, what is our next step in the war? Jiraiya smiled grimly, we are going to keep things a bit low-key, but we'll be bleeding our enemies. Kumo is going to reinforce their border, and that will make them sitting ducks for a small squad of highly trained shinobi to wipe those border fortifications out. We'll be sending the minor villages shinobi to help Suna put more pressure on Iwa. Naruto knew exactly who Jiraiya meant when he said a small squad of highly trained shinobi. It would be Team 7 who harassed the border. Unless Kumo could bring overwhelming force down on their heads, it would be nearly impossible to stop them. And if they did bring overwhelming force, they could always turn tail and run. Not many shinobi could keep up with Team 7, and that was before you considered the clones that would be delaying pursuit. When do we leave? Shikaku waved off the request. Don't be so eager. Sakura is still working on her project and you are still training the second chance groups. Sasuke's eyes are showing no signs of strain, but Tsunade still doesn't like the complete lack of knowledge we have on the Mangekyo Sharingan. We are still rebuilding. Naruto saw the wisdom in all of that. While he was a good deal more calm than he was a few years ago, he still burned with excess energy. He didn't particularly like killing people, but he did enjoy fighting for something he believed in. Jiraiya interjected, Shikaku, you and Naruto handle anything while I'm gone. I need to go to Mount Myoboku. They were surprised but agreed. Soon Jiraiya had a toad summoned who would be passing along the message to reverse summon him. And within the hour Jiraiya was with the toads. Anko considered herself terribly unfit to be a mother. Hell, before now she didn't even want to be a mother. But even with jutsu, accidents happened, and this one had been met with unadulterated joy from her husband. Iruka was so beside himself with happiness that Anko couldn't help but be infected of it. Terrible timing in the middle of a war though. Yes, Anko was pregnant and Iruka was thrilled. They decided not to make an announcement, but Anko would remove herself as an active shinobi to ensure the safety of the baby. Don't think I'm going to play homemaker, Iruka-kun. When the baby comes I'll be caring for it, but I plan on being back out of the field watching your back. Iruka knew better than to argue. Though he did secretly hope the little bundle of joy to be would be more persuasive than he ever could. Gurren of the Shoten, Crystal Release, had been a loner since the death of Orochimaru. He had been the charismatic light that had given her life meaning and purpose. Since then she had lived a life of isolation and wondered if she should bother continuing on at all. She was still a highly skilled shinobi even if some of her skills had atrophied. And so when she felt the massive chakra presence she instantly prepared herself for a fight. Kisame shouted, Gurren, come on out, I'm not here to kill you. Gurren knew of Kisame Hoshigaki. He was the most feared S-class criminal Kiri had ever produced. What on earth does he want with me? She was confident in her abilities, but Kisame was on another level entirely. If he had come for violence, there was little she could do to stop him. That didn't mean she would go down easily, but the man's reputation put him in the same league as Orochimaru-sama himself. Gurren decided to show herself. That's close enough, why are you here? Kisame laughed, don't be scared now. You should know by now I prefer the direct approach. If I wanted to kill you I'd already be breathing down your neck. Why are you here? She asked again more strongly. My organization is recruiting, we lost a few folks recently and we thought you might be interested. Gurren laughed, and why do you think I'd be interested? Orochimaru-sama was your enemy. Why would I help you? Kisame gave her a grin revealing his shark-like teeth. Because we are going to be going after the ones that killed Orochimaru and you seem like a vindictive person to me. Help us and we'll give you a crack at Team 7 and the Hokage. Gurren thought about it and then a slow smile crept onto her lips. Absolutely not, the head of the Hyuga clan declared. Sakura groaned, come on Hinata, you were the one who wanted this done. We've got a working plan now and soon it has a number of death-like states she can put someone in. This was always going to be risky. Hinata narrowed her eyes. What they were talking about was insane. They wanted to essentially kill one of her clan members, hopefully be able to revive him and then see if they can adjust the sealed cage bird seal. There are too many risks. I refuse to experiment with the lives of my family. Then the caged bird seal isn't coming off. I'm sorry Hinata, this isn't a matter of wanting something bad enough or trying hard enough. Some things are simply impossible. I won't bore you with the explanation, but any kind of traditional fuinjutsu solution simply will not work. The seal designer was too thorough. Hinata looked every inch the Hyuga. Perfectly poised on the outside, but inside she was frantically thinking about what she should do. Finally, after a long tense moment, she said, I am not caged myself, so I cannot make the decision for them. If you can find a volunteer to go through with this, it will be up to them. Start with Ko and find out who can be trusted. We cannot let the clan elders know yet. Sakura grinned. You won't be sorry, Hinata. We have Tsunade-sama herself on hand to make sure everything goes well. Kami, I hope so, Sakura. These are people's lives. The entire idea of what you are doing reminds me too much of Orochimaru and his experiments. Sakura looked taken aback. Hinata, do not compare me to that snake. Nothing we are doing is wrong. We aren't using Edo Tensei or some kinjutsu. We are using sound medical ninjutsu to trick an evil cursed seal. I said it reminds me of it, not that it was it. Sakura was a big miffed, but she understood the stress Hinata was under. She was responsible for an entire clan and she took that burden seriously. In the long run it was a good thing, but right now it frustrated her. All right, let's not argue. Thank you for your cooperation and I'll do everything in my power to make sure this works without any lives lost. Kidomaru had been gravely injured after the battle with Konoha, where he had served as a mercenary with the Iwa forces. Over the course of a month he had managed to regain full use of his limbs. It had been galling to have him and his men so easily defeated by a single jutsu. How he hated Konoha for destroying his home. He used to be someone. He used to be powerful and important. And while his abilities and strength as a shinobi had grown, he was now a nobody. And so when he encountered the man flying on a strange white bird that looked like clay, he readied himself for a fight. He was mad at the world and he wanted to take it out on someone. Anyone would do, really. He activated his cursed seal, but before he could do anything the man called out, "Oi, I didn't come here to fight, but if you insist I'll blow you apart with my art and you'll never avenge your master." Kidomaru paused. Avenge Orochimaru. He had desired that, but mostly he had desired power and prestige. It looked like someone else wanted to hire him. He would hear what the strange man had to say. If he didn't like it, he could always kill him later anyway. Deidara grinned. His man Sasori's information had been golden as always. Soon they would have another recruit. Break. It turned out Ko was very willing to volunteer. The idea that the hated cage bird seal could be finally done away with was worth the risk. And Hinata had spent some time ensuring he understood the risks. He could die, which was probably unlikely due to having a medical nin of Tsunade's caliber on hand, but the risk did exist. More likely was that his Byakugan would be sealed forever. The entire point of this process was to cause the Byakugan to be sealed under a death-like state, then apply a counteracting Fuinjutsu formula and then bring him out of the death-like state. Ko had proudly told Hinata that he didn't care. This was more important than any one shinobi. Hinata was grateful and wished him luck. Tsunade, Hana, Sasuke, Sakura and a half-dozen Naruto clones were there waiting with the medical equipment. Tsunade would be handling the process of putting their volunteer under. Hana would be her chief assistant. Sasuke would use his Sharingan to watch how the seal reacted to different stimuli, and Sakura would handle the Fuinjutsu portion. Sakura didn't allow a hint of nervousness to show. She had hoped Jiraiya would take charge, but he had said that she knew more about the seal than even he did at this point, thanks to her weeks of study. This was her project, and if it failed there would be no one to blame but herself. Tsunade began the show by slowing Ko's heartbeat. Soon he was sound asleep in a medically induced coma. Any change with the Hyuga Soak no Juinjutsu, caged bird seal? Tsunade asked Sasuke, who looked closely with his Sharingan. No change. We'll lower his heartbeat further and put him in a death-like state. Tsunade carefully took a senbon and pierced her patient's neck, shutting his body down. To a casual observer, Ko would seem dead. Even his heart wasn't beating now. It did still beat, but at such a slow pace one would have to keep their ear listening for over a minute. No change, Sasuke advised. Sakura frowned. She had hoped to get more immediate results. She raised her voice. Let's move on to the second experiment. Tsunade shook her head. No, Sakura. Moving too fast could make us lose him. Let Sasuke continue watching. I'll be here for the next 12 hours, and if nothing changes I'll revive him. I'm skilled enough to bring him around and reverse the temporary death-like state. Give him 24 hours for recovery and we'll start our other planned methods. Sakura was impatient, but she saw wisdom in the Sanin's words. So much for getting quick results. Sasuke also wasn't particularly pleased. He took pride in his Sharingan, but staring at a body, a cursed seal and the chakra network was pretty boring. The Uchiha clan head would much rather be training, or even making progress on selecting his potential mates. Konohamaru was on the fast track to making Chunin. As the holder of the monkey contract, his ability to summon Enma gave him more power than a Jonin. Unfortunately, his chakra reserves, which were well above average for his age, weren't quite sufficient to summon him. This meant that he was spending long hours mastering his chakra control to make the summon more efficient and building his chakra reserves by doing the tree walking exercises as long as he could. In addition to that, he trained with his team. He vowed never again to be helpless in the face of an enemy. Deep down, he felt personally responsible for Kotetsu and Izumo's deaths. If he had been stronger, he wouldn't have needed to be saved. If he had been stronger, Udon wouldn't have gotten hurt. Asuma saw his nephew training hard and approached him. Konohamaru, how are you and your team doing? Getting stronger. Next time those bastards come here, I'll tear them apart. Asuma chuckled. Well, if all goes well, they won't be coming here again. It won't be long before we hit them back. The Sandaim's grandson of course hoped that Konoha wouldn't get invaded again, but on the other hand he wanted to pay them back. And it was doubtful they would let him be part of the attack. As heir to the Sarutobi clan and still a genin, the odds of him being part of a retaliatory strike were slim. In frustration he slammed his fist into the bark of the tree, shattering a good chunk of it. The elder Sarutobi saw the boy's anger, the boy's hate, and give him a grim nod. I know exactly how you feel, but Kumo isn't going anywhere and there will be plenty of time in your life to get revenge. Right now focus on getting stronger, and not just yourself but your team as well. We've always been known for the strength of our teamwork, but Kakashi and Team 7 have taken that to a whole new level. Learn from their success. The genin gave his uncle a smile. Yeah, you're right. They need to get their lazy butts to work too. They weren't really lazy, but they didn't have the same level of dedication as he did. As the young genin turned to go check on his teammates, he gave another look at his uncle. I know Kumo isn't going anywhere right now, but one day we are going to wipe him off the map, and I'll be damned sure I'm a part of that. Kankuro was pleased with his newest puppet. All on its own, it had wiped out 2 teams of older genin and their Chunin commanders. If his sister were here, she would be sure to mock the accomplishments, since killing genin, regardless of their age, was pathetically easy. I'd give up being a ninja if I was in my 20s and still a genin. Some people have no self-respect. I was doing those Iwa dogs a favor by taking out the trash. He idly brought Saraizarinku out of the earth. From the front, the puppet looked like a giant mole. Assuming moles had serrated teeth dripping with poison. That was just the head of the puppet, however. The rest of it was the body of a snake and was 30 feet long. This creation was his very first original construct. It had a number of defensive abilities and it had been specifically designed to fight Iwa shinobi. Saraizarinku could burrow through sand, rock or earth easily enough. It could fight with half of its body buried directly underneath Kankuro, which would effectively shield him from nasty jutsu like Doton, Doryuso, Earth Release, Earth Flow Spears. One of the shinobi under his command reported in, Kankuro-sama, we were able to capture the supplies intact. Should we bring them back to Suna? He shook his head. No. Take anything immediately useful you can carry. Burn the rest. The purpose of the attack here and elsewhere through Tsuchi no Kuni, Land of Earth, was to slowly strangle their enemy. Travel would be crippled and towns that needed to import food would soon begin to grow desperate. The Earth Daimyo was learning that soldiers made poor opponents for the terrifyingly effective guerrilla strikes that shinobi like Kankuro and his team were capable of. It would take shinobi or a massive amount of soldiers to deal with something like Saraizarinku. And so far the shinobi of Iwagakure were demoralized and still in a state of shock at the deaths of their leaders and the destruction of their Jinchuriki. Only their ally Kumo had also been able to wield 2 of the living weapons in battle, and now they had both been stripped away as well. Shock and panic reigned supreme, and Iwa had yet to announce a new Chushikage. It was the type of war that Kankuro favored. A massive battle like what had taken place in Konohagakure would be frustrating. As a puppet master, he already had to split his attention in dozens of directions. Add in massive ninjutsu flying back and forth, projectiles, and the need to avoid doing damage to his own allies, and such a battle would be terribly taxing. Hi Kankuro-sama, the sandy-haired Chunin replied. Things are going well, but what I really want to do is give Saraizarinku a real test. Mui was frustrated. The Jonin had not been in favor of allying so closely with Konoha. He had another plan, a plan that involved kinjutsu that the council in their short-sightedness had forbidden. They could not see the greatness that Kasagakure could become. Instead they would go on as they have, being a minor power at the beck and call of the truly great villages of the elemental nations. Even that name gnawed at his psyche. The elemental nations were named for fire, earth, water, wind and lightning countries as if they were the only nations to matter. Those short-sighted fools. Mui's senses suddenly prickled and he instantly was on guard, ready to ignite a firestorm with his personal Kaiten jutsu should it prove necessary. However, instead of an attack, a strange creature emerged from the ground. Part white and part black. The Jonin wasn't sure what exactly it was and kept a wary eye on it. Zetsu spoke, "Mui, we have been watching you. Who are you?" "We are the Akatsuki. We will tear down the 5 great villages and recreate this world." Mui wasn't so easily convinced, but he had been intrigued. And then he went from intrigued to being hooked. Their plans seemed odd, but for too long Kasagakure had played second fiddle. While what they planned would not cause the ascension of his village, it would bring the major powers down. The Akatsuki was pleased with the acquisition of another elite shinobi. Break. After Ko had sufficiently recovered, it was back to the drawing board. Tsunade stopped his heart. No change. Tsunade restricted blood flow to the brain. No change. Tsunade even paralyzed his nervous system and still no change. Sakura wasn't happy. While Kakashi's idea had been interesting, it appeared that it wasn't going to work. The only bright side was that Ko hadn't suffered any lasting harm from their experimentation. As they were wrapping up their final test, Sasuke frowned and studied the situation. "Sakura, why are we focusing on making the body appear dead when the caged bird seal is tied to the chakra network?" Sakura's mind raced. The seal was affixed to the body. It was on the skin plane as day. But the reason why it couldn't be removed was because it was imprinted on the chakra network. If the chakra network could be shut down, then the seal's failsafe would be disabled. The problem with this was that shutting down the chakra network could destroy a shinobi's ability to use jutsu. However, if it could be done temporarily and only to the area where the seal was located. Sakura's face lit up. "Sasuke, you're a genius. I am an Uchiha." Sakura punched his arm. "Stop it. No. I've found the solution, and if this works, the irony is too perfect." Sasuke looked at her quizzically and Sakura explained. "The gentle fist-style closed tenketsu points. If all of the tenketsu points were closed in the head region, it would rob the caged bird seal of the power to function, and then it could be manipulated through fuinjutsu." It still needed to be tested, but the theory was sound. The only complication was that closing tenketsu points near the brain wasn't exactly the safest thing to do. But with a world-class medical nin on hand, it could work. The irony was that the Hyuga themselves had the ability to free themselves from their seal by using their tenketsu closing combat style. Was this planned? Did the creator of this seal want it to be reversible, but only at the hands of their family? With a new plan in mind, Sakura's inner fire burned brightly. Break. More work had to be done. However, with the breakthrough discovered, it soon became possible to manipulate the caged bird seal fuinjutsu formula, and Ko became the first branch member to be unsealed. Tsunade had overseen the process and had estimated the chance of serious injury or death to be less than 1% if she personally oversaw the procedure, and up to 5% if it was done by another medical nin. Those odds were acceptable to Hinata, the new head of the clan. Now she would begin sending branch members to get their seal undone. Openly flaunting the fact their Byakugan was unsealed wasn't a wise decision. The obvious problem, of course, was it would be open season on the Hyuga for those that hungered for their eyes. The second issue was the Hyuga elders. Hinata wouldn't put anything past them and wouldn't be surprised if they held the ones still afflicted with the caged bird seal hostage. It was best to go slow, and already Neji and others had been released. Hinata felt pride well in her chest. She hadn't been the heir for even 2 months, and already she was changing the clan for the better. The removal of what was essentially a slavery seal was the pinnacle of her achievements, but it wasn't the only one. The branch members were treated with kindness, and they were asked what they wanted to do. Some who had been declared unfit for shinobi duty had second chances. Some who didn't want to be shinobi were allowed to retire. Eventually word would get out to the elders, and when it did, she would be ready for them. If they tried to stop her, she would break them. Unlike the elders, she was not blinded by pride. She had the blessings of the Hokage and Kakashi's team. If they tried anything, she would have no qualms with asking for Team 7 to clean house. That was a last resort, however. Her thoughts drifted to Kiba. They had become close after his mother's death. Kiba wanted to formalize their relationship with a marriage. Traditionally, the idea of a Hyuga heiress or a clan head marrying an Inuzuka would be unheard of, but now, anything was possible. Hinata had seen how short life's thread was and how easily it could be severed. Her mother, her sensei, her father. The timing is wrong, but one day soon I will accept. Break. Jiraiya had returned from Mount Myoboku and met with Shikaku, Kakashi and Naruto. Nara asked, well. Jiraiya shrugged helplessly, prophecies are vague. One of my students would change the world. Does that mean Minato? Nagato? Naruto? Naruto held little stock in prophecies, which didn't surprise the Hokage considering who his sensei was. Shikaku didn't venture an opinion either way other than to say, troublesome. No new information from the Toads. No confirmation yet that it is Nagato. Until we learn more we should focus on Kumo. That sounded reasonable to Kakashi. My team will head out in a week and start destroying the outposts and border fortifications of Kaminari no Kuni, Land of Lightning. Jiraiya knew Kakashi's team was best suited for the task. They could travel swiftly and had 3 S-class shinobi. Sakura was by no means a slouch either. Her genjutsu and fuinjutsu support might as well have given the team the strength of 4 S-class shinobi all on their own. Remember Kakashi, you're there to bloody their nose. If a target of opportunity arises, I don't want you going off on your own. Hit your targets and get back to Konoha. Ma, don't be so worried. Kakashi waved off the Hokage's concern. Jiraiya furrowed his brow, I mean it Kakashi. The Jinchuriki are being hunted. They will be targeting Naruto. I'll be taking steps to ensure that no one realizes Naruto is gone, but I don't want you to take any chances. Hi Hokage-sama, Kakashi intoned. Naruto added, don't worry pervy sage, we got this. You just make sure nobody invades while we're gone. Shikaku just shook his head, troublesome. The discussion shifted to other issues in the village. The rebuilding was going well. The first crop of graduates of Naruto's basic shinobi reassessment were ready to go. The added genin would help backfill the genin they would be providing promotions for. Given the war, there would be no chunin exams and the standards would be made laxer. They needed to rebuild their combat squads and be ready for the next phase in the war. Jiraiya wasn't a fan of putting shinobi who weren't 100% ready into the fray, but sometimes training in the field had to occur. The rest of Fire Country was struggling. The northern parts needed supplies and craftsmen, but with that part of the country most likely to have enemy shinobi potentially arriving, there was little incentive for anyone to travel there. The economies of all of the nations except for the Land of Water had suffered a blow as goods were no longer traveling back and forth. Banditry was on the rise, and despite the heavy losses, Jiraiya had no choice but to send out shinobi to deal with it lest anarchy reign. The good news was that Iwa was still reeling from events and Suna had honored their alliance in spades. The Land of Earth hadn't been able to put up much a defense. Eventually they would get their act together, but for now their contribution to the war would be minimal outside of their own borders. Shikaku's spy network did have one piece of alarming news. Kumo was actively courting the normally neutral samurai. If they entered the war, it could make things very difficult. From his travels, Jiraiya knew that samurai were not to be trifled with. Their rigid focus on kenjutsu made them predictable but quite deadly in close quarters. Of all the hidden villages, Kumo had the most in common with them. Jiraiya thought about it and then stated, we'll want to have a team go in person and present our case. He looked at Naruto, who would you recommend? Naruto felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He glanced at Kakashi and then back at the Hokage. We should send Neji, Tenten and Lee. Neji and Lee are a fantastic combination. Lee's great weakness is his susceptibility to genjutsu, which is countered nicely by Neji's ability to see through visual genjutsu, which is the most commonly used. Both of them are formidable fighters and Neji has the bearing of a noble. Naruto continued, Tenten is a weapons expert and will get along well with a land full of people who like to carry swords. Since they were already on a genin team together, they will have great teamwork. We have a strong team that can act in diplomatic situations and is almost impossible to ambush. Kakashi gave him an eye smile that signaled his agreement. Shikaku couldn't find any fault with the analysis either. While teams were frequently set up in 4-man blocks, it wasn't a requirement. The fewer that went, the more easily their presence could be masked from Kumo's agents. Jiraiya smiled, good choices Naruto, we'll give them a day to get ready and then they will be off. I'll let you handle the mission briefing. Naruto felt a bit awkward giving orders to 3 shinobi from a class that graduated before him. It wouldn't be difficult since the control Kakashi had taught him would ensure no tremor entered his voice when he spoke with them. Likewise, there would be no nervous eye movement or gestures. He would radiate an air of jovial authority that fit his reputation but also called for respect. It would be the first time he ordered shinobi on a mission. If they were killed on the mission, it would be because he had selected them for it. That worry gnawed at his gut. His thoughts were with the 3 who would be sent out. The final thought was the one that would keep him up at night. Sending shinobi out on life and death missions. This is what it means to be Hokage. Do I really want this? Break. The wedding between Sasuke and Amy was a rushed affair. Sasuke was impatient to begin rebuilding his clan and Amy was thrilled at being the first, Mrs. Uchiha. Despite the hasty arrangements, there were an absurd number of guests. The last Uchiha was getting married. It represented many things, not the least of which was hope in a troubled wartime. The village knew that Sasuke would likely be on the front lines of any conflict, and each time he went out to fight for the glory of Konoha, a single misstep could cost him his life and the village their most powerful dojutsu. Sasuke didn't care too much about the masses. He did care quite a bit about his teammates and his sensei. They were all in attendance, and he cherished the thought that one day his children would look up to Naruto and Sakura as an uncle and an aunt. The ceremony was mercifully swift and the village was happy for Amy. It was clear to all that she was on cloud 9 at being able to marry Sasuke. Even the other girls who wanted Sasuke's hand weren't too bent out of shape since she would not be the last woman he married. The celebration kicked off and there was dancing and drinking. Much merriment was to be had. However, that led to one happy bride drinking a bit too much. Amy wasn't an overtly cruel young woman despite her early years. However, with drink she grew more bold and more self-satisfied in her lot in life. She could be heard several times saying that clearly she was the most beautiful and perfect woman in the village for her to be selected first by Sasuke-kun. While Sasuke found that behavior annoying, it wasn't enough to truly rile him up. But then she set her sights on Sakura. You know, Sakura, I used to be so jealous that you got to be a kunoichi and be on Sasuke-kun's team. It made me so mad. But look at us now. I ended up getting Sasuke and you got stuck with the class clown. Naruto wasn't bothered by the words. He had no insecurities about his place in the village. He was Naruto Namikaze. His actions had saved thousands of lives and one day he would be the Hokage. The words only annoyed him in the sense that they were insulting to Sakura. Sakura could also care less. The girl was drunk and high on life right now, let her have her petty W on the day she got married. Sasuke wasn't quite so forgiving. Killing intent brought all of the revelry to a sudden halt. It wasn't directed at the crowd. It was focused on his bride, who felt sudden terror in every fiber of her body. She couldn't even move aside from trembling like a leaf in a storm. You will not insult my friends. One word from either of them and I will set you aside at a moment's notice. His icy tone sent shivers down Ami's spine. Sakura started to say it was all right, but Sasuke silenced her with a look. Now apologize. Ami's teeth were chattering and she was stuttering like Hinata had once done in the academy. But she managed to push out her apologies to both Naruto and Sakura. Only then did the oppressive killing intent lift. Amy looked around at everyone staring at her. Some with shock, others with pity and others with scorn. What was supposed to have been her most joyous day had turned into utter humiliation. She took one last look at the crowds and burst into sobs, fleeing from the area. Jiraiya, who was in attendance, buried his head in his hands. He had hoped to get some inspiration from what should have been a romantic event, something his female readers enjoyed immensely. Instead, this happened. Naruto looked at Sasuke. You know, her words didn't bother us. That's a crazy way to start your first day of marriage. It didn't bother you, but it bothered me. Naruto, you are my brother. Sakura, you are my sister. Those who disrespect you, disrespect me. I won't stand for it. Sakura had mixed feelings. On the one hand, she was glad to hear how strongly he valued them, but on the other she felt pity. Sasuke wasn't looking for love in these marriages. His words on the disastrous date were more haunting now than ever. Sakura, I have never felt what you want me to feel. I don't know if I'm capable of it. Sakura knew that Sasuke had been broken by his brother on that horrible night when his family was murdered. Not many people understood just how damaged he was. If it had not been for the strong bonds Kakashi had forged with Team 7, she wondered if Sasuke would care about a single other living soul. Kami, I hope this changes when he has children. Break. It was a day before Kakashi's team would head out. Since Sakura was no longer needed to help with the unsealing of the caged bird seal, she was free to push her creative mind further into the applications of Fuinjutsu in combat. Today she had placed the finishing touches on the Anbu suit, as she liked to call it. Naruto, Kakashi and Sasuke watched as the Fuinjutsu prodigy went over the various seals on the dark body suit and mask. Naruto already knew most of it, as it was his clones that did most of the heavy lifting in terms of the workload. Sakura was the idea girl and Naruto just needed to be taught the various seals and the amount of chakra used. From their mass production was easy. We'll start with the mask. The mask has hardening seals which will prevent all but the strongest projectile from shattering it. It won't stop a futon-laced kunai thrown by Naruto-kun, but anything short of that will leave nothing but a scratch. The seal design was actually fairly simple and was already in use on buildings. The only change had been to miniaturize it, which had been completed with etching as opposed to chakra ink. There are additional seals on the inside of the mask that filter air. Poisonous substances will be filtered out so clean air can be breathed. Depending on the saturation of gas, there might not be enough clean air, which is why a tiny storage seal has been added with oxygen. It requires a tiny burst of chakra to activate, but you'll be able to breathe clean air for an additional 10 minutes. Naruto knew she planned on having the masks provided to Anbu and then eventually to any shinobi who desired one. Sakura continued. The sunny day paralleled her personality that morning. Talking about Fuinjutsu was a passion of hers. Next we get to the suit itself. It isn't very bulky, far less so than a standard flak jacket. However, every inch of it has seals that strengthen it from strikes. It isn't as strong as the mask, but it should stop all projectiles and anything a Chunin could throw at it. Flame retardant seals are standard. Sakura was wearing one of the suits and she asked Sasuke to demonstrate by unleashing a Kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Sasuke gave her look, but when she nodded he blurred through the hand seals and sent a massive fireball her way. Sakura had hastily placed her mask on and the fireball exploded and covered her with flames. When the smoke cleared, Sakura gave the victory symbol as her team inspected her for any damage. But that isn't all this suit can do. I'll need some clones to demonstrate some of the offensive capabilities. Naruto created a few of his Kage Bunshin. Now block my downward strike, she ordered. The clone blocked her descending knife hand. As soon as it made contact with the suit, a flurry of razor-sharp metal exploded from the edge of Sakura's covered hand. It instantly ventilated the clone, who dissipated. Pressure-based storage seals are located on the palms, the edge of the hand, the foot, the knee and on the back. When you push chakra into the seal, it unleashes what is basically one of my kunai scrolls. However, instead of kunai it is shredded metal. With the air pressure built into the seal, it will make mincemeat of all but the fastest Jonin-level opponents. Kakashi was impressed. It did not pay to be a taijutsu specialist in the brave new world Sakura was taking them into. With time we can modify the suits to each shinobi's unique needs. The possibilities are endless. A tiny trickle of chakra and sulfuric acid could spray from your palms. Or one of my special kunai surprises that worked so well against Iwa. She held up a finger. There is one drawback, however. The seals do require chakra to operate, and in order to fit them all in, it takes a significant amount of chakra to keep it running for 3 days. However, I'm getting around that by using our little chakra battery here. Gee, thanks Sakura-chan. But that isn't going to work for Anbu teams, Kakashi admonished. True, but if we put the entire suit in a stasis scroll, the chakra bleed would be minimal, allowing us to mass product these and only bring them out right before a fight. Kakashi saw weaknesses in the idea, since you didn't always know when you would be getting into a fight. However, having those available when you would know, like when a massive shinobi army attacked the walls of Konoha, they would be another formidable weapon in Konoha's arsenal. Sakura finished her demonstration, so who is ready to field test these against Kumo? That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.